Good evening, here's top news newsletter starting with headlines. ISIS terrorists killed and injured in Hasake, their vehicles destroyed. National Dialogue Committee pressuring Syrian neighbors to prevent flow of terrorists. ISIS mass execution in Iraqi's Tikrit. Pakistan Taliban kill 100 in assault on Peshawar school. Syrian army killed and injured scores of so-called ISIS terrorists in the areas of Mafraq al-Siddiq, Rahaf and Malayba in the countryside of Hasake, northeastern province. A source in Hasake province said that a number of terrorist vehicles loaded with weaponry were also destroyed, in addition to destroying other vehicles which were equipped with Doshka machine guns. The delegation presenting the Syrian National Dialogue Committee has called for concerted international efforts to stop terrorism and to pressure on Syria's neighboring countries which facilitate the flow of terrorists and support them financially and logistically, to close the borders so as contribute to resolving the crisis in Syria. The delegation called for the need of participation of all national opposition forces, comprising parties of political forces and independent figures within Syria, to take part in the political dialogue. Secretary General of the National Youth Justice and Development Party Parween Ibrahim confirmed that the delegation conveyed the views of the national opposition parties and urged the UN to deplore Israel for its violation of Syrian sovereignty, and noting the efforts of UN envoy de Mistura in support for a political solution for the crisis. Few photos have emerged online showing the mass execution of 13 men at the hands of the Takfiri militants in northern Iraq. In the first picture, 11 men could be seen kneeling with a black-clad and masked gunman behind each one. The dead were reportedly members of anti-Islamic group, and the Takfiri terrorists captured them in Tikrit and Al-Alam over a week ago. The so-called ISIS have been in control of Tikrit since the beginning of militants' major offensive in Iraq 6 months ago. The terrorists are engaged in crime against humanity in the areas under their control and have terrorized and killed people of all communities. At least 130 people, 83 of them children, have been killed in a Taliban assault on an army-run school in Peshawar, Pakistan. 5 or 6 militants wearing security uniforms entered the school, officials said. Gunfire and explosions were heard as security forces surrounded the area. The army says most of the school's 500 students have been evacuated, while it's not clear how many are being held hostages. A Taliban spokesman says the assault is in response to army operations. Hundreds of Taliban fighters are thought to have died in a recent military offensive in North Waziristan. A school worker and student interviewed by the local GU TV station said the attackers had entered the Army Public Schools auditorium, where a military team was conducting first aid training for students. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea (DPRK) demanded that the United Nations must add the violation committed by the U.S. Central Agency CIA against detainees to its agenda instead of accusing DPRK of violating human rights. In a letter sent Monday to the UN Security Council, DPRK mission to the UN said that violation committed by CIA against scores of Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists which have been tackled in dangerous violation of human rights in the world. The so-called human rights issue in the DPRK is politically fabricated, and therefore it's not all relevant to the regional of international peace and security, DPRK ambassador to the UN, Ja Song-nam, said. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nibal Hnaidi. Good night.